Warhammer 3 is good, but in the immortal words of Pedro Pascal in that Wonder Woman movie that I haven't seen,
but it can be better.
So today I'm going to attempt to build the ultimate Warhammer 3 with improvements to everything from campaign to battle and even quality of life. So let's dive into the workshop and see what we can find. But if you want to dive into these videos without watching ads, you should become a channel member. All of the same videos with none of the ads, all for just $1 a month. Learn more and become a member at the join button below. Now, let's get into the mods. As a foundation for this entire project, I'm going to start with SFO, or the Simple Fun Overhaul. If you've been living under a rock and haven't heard of it, SFO is basically the Warhammer 3 overhaul that preserves the feel of each unique faction whilst elevating them to be the best that they can be. There's too much to cover in a video like this, hence why I've made several videos all about the individual faction changes in the past, but all you need to know is that this will act as a great foundation to build upon to improve everything else in-game. Some key features that I chose it for are integrated unit caps, since I believe they make any campaign more interesting, more robust tech trees to make research more engaging, and a lot of smaller balance changes that tend to slow the campaign and battles down to make them feel a lot more strategic. Plus, if you want to tweak literally anything it touches, you can do so by using the SFO settings menu in the top left, so it's super easy to get the balance just right. But most importantly, the aim of this video isn't to make something unrecognisable, because at that point, you are hardly playing Warhammer 3 anymore. Instead, I want to elevate the base game to be the best experience possible, while still preserving the feel of the game, and SFO will get us a good way towards that goal instantly. Now we have our foundation, we can move on to some smaller mods, and I'm going to separate into a few sections, focusing first on the campaign before moving into battle. Our first section focuses on settlements to not only unlock more building variety and therefore strategy, but also give some extra utility to our settlements to make them more useful than ever. And that starts with the expanded building overhaul and building slots extended. These two go hand in hand since, in my opinion, it would be very difficult to play with expanded buildings without some extra building slots. And whilst you could argue that this screws with the balance a little bit, thanks to SFO, we can choose to nerf our economy to keep things a little fair. However, just know that the AI also gets access to these extra buildings and slots, so whilst you may end up a lot stronger, so will they. Anywho, to sum up the expanded building overhaul, it really does what it says on the tin. You now have access to way more buildings to give your faction boosts in all kind of stats. Of course, there's basic stuff like income, but also heavily expanding military buildings to break up recruitment and provide more buffs and bonuses for units in the province. This varies from faction to faction, but in general, you are looking at a lot more buildings, and so it only makes sense to give yourself a few more building slots to make use of them. You now get 6 slots per minor city, 12 per major, and 15 per special city like Altdorf or Lorven. 15 sounds absurd, and to be honest, it kind of is, but remember, all of these buildings cost money, so it will take you a very long time to fill up these settlements and farm so many effects. It can get pretty strong, but takes a long time to get there, and like I said, you can use game difficulty and SFO to apply as many penalties as you like to keep things challenging if you notice them getting too easy. Whilst we're expanding our settlements and building options, we're also going to use Landmarks of Legend. This adds over 200 landmarks to the game to almost every faction, meaning you'll almost always be able to make use of something new. These offer all kinds of powerful effects like unique units or regiments of renown, and more effects than I could possibly list in a video like this. The bottom line is more unique buildings to spice up your settlements and stack on even more bonuses to your faction. Again, is it totally balanced? Not always, but is it fun and easily balanced with various difficulty tweaks? Absolutely. Speaking of dubious balance, climate adaptation is certainly going to be a bit of a Marmite mod. You will either think this is a great option, or something that screws the balance beyond recognition. Okay, that may be slight hyperbole, but this is YouTube, that's kind of how things work. And how this mod works is pretty simple. Whenever you capture a settlement with an unsuitable or uninhabitable climate, over time the debuff you receive from negative climates will disappear. By default, this is 25 turns for unsuitable and 50 turns for uninhabitable, so it's not like you can get rid of these penalties instantly. It more so rewards you for powering through and settling where the game says you shouldn't. It's still damn hard to settle and maintain settlements in these areas, but if you manage to hold on, they will eventually function like any other settlement. There are options like torch your climate to instead remove penalties by building a tier 3 building, but I think adaptation is a more balanced option since these regions will still need significant investment of both time and money to survive before they become useful. Speaking of making settlements useful, proactive garrison attack does this in a very direct way. Have you ever had an enemy army wandering through your land with no armies nearby to take them out? Now you can select any settlement with a garrison and allow that army to sally forth and attack any armies in their range to allow your actual armies to stay where you need them. This is an admittedly niche ability, but nevertheless an option that is really nice to have for the odd occasion when you need it. Yeah, it is kinda strong, but you still need to allow garrisons time to heal and also win the battles to begin with, so it's not without risk. And lastly, for a little cosmetic treat, a classic mod that I've been using since Warhammer 2, Building Progression Icons 3. All this does is change the icons of most vanilla buildings so that each tier has a different icon. It's a small change, but it really does make it easier to see what tier each building is without having to look at the actual tier numbers. Just bear in mind that modded buildings will not benefit from this, so if you see any duplicate images, that's probably why. Our next section is for lords and heroes, and we're aiming to make navigating between armies and heroes a lot smoother, alongside making skill trees both more in-depth and easily navigable. First up, Army Carousel. This makes managing armies in the late game so much easier. Normally the skill page becomes a bit of a mess once you have more than like 6 lords and heroes, and figuring out which army is which and who is with who gets to be a real headache. Well, with this, whenever you select a lord or hero in an army, the top right will show other lords or heroes in that same army. Alongside this, you can choose to toggle between all heroes of the same type or just all armies, so no matter what you're trying to do, you can do it with much less hassle. Like I said, this one only comes into effect in the late game, but once you live with it, it's very difficult to go without it. T-specific skill queue is another mod that tends to be even more noticeable in late campaigns when you end up with lots of lords or heroes of the same type. It allows you to create presets for each type of lord and hero, so that if you get another, you can level them up the exact same way without having to do it manually. I know that most of the time I level up generic characters the exact same way every single time. Spellcasters will always get all of their spells before going back for other buffs and abilities. Assassins will focus on campaign prowess, and so on. This way I only decide the path once, and every time they level up, they'll just choose the right skills automatically. It can be a little bit fiddly to get your presets sorted out, and I highly recommend checking out the mod page for a helpful guide on every single feature, but just know, once you understand it, it is a great tool for alleviating a lot of busy work. Lastly, but arguably most importantly, we have something to flesh out hero skill trees that can often feel a little bit empty. This affects every single race in the game, and it not only gives heroes more to level up in the later game, but in doing so makes them even more impactful in your armies and on the campaign map. I will say that even with so many new skills, from what I've seen, nothing is too crazy powerful, and more so gives you another way to get value out of your heroes, no matter how you are using them. Next up, loot. These are mods that affect items in-game and give you a lot more variety and improve their impact, since, if we're being honest, by default, most of them end up being pretty mid at best. First up, we have Rebanner 3, and this aims to rework banners to make them a lot more interesting to use. Almost all banners in the base game are changed to have a lot more impact. Once again, the effects of these vary wildly depending on the specific item, but chances are if you find a banner, you'll notice it being a lot more useful, rather than adding, say, to leadership. We now have 3 in a row here all about items, and all of them are from the same mod maker. Just More Items does what it says in the tin and adds a lot more items to the game. 280 new items across all categories, including new sets with bonuses for equipping all pieces, and even some brand new custom abilities are all included. This makes items a lot more varied, interesting and impactful, rather than being stuck with generic items that can sometimes be a little bit weak. It's pretty similar to Rebanner, but instead of reworking existing items, it just adds all new ones. If you like getting the very most out of your lords and heroes, then this will seriously help with that. Next up, Treasures of the Endless Deeps. You know those roaming pirate armies that sail around the map and don't really have much of a point unless you're a Vampire Coast faction? Well, now each of them has some sweet loot you can get by defeating them. Since it's made by the same person as Just More Items, that means it's more powerful items with impactful effects, so makes them a lot more worth battling when you can. And lastly, we have Shadows of the Lost. This rewards you with unique followers each time you destroy a faction. One more time, it's varied and impactful items and gives a little added reward for wiping out a faction completely. And because one set of new items wasn't enough, we may as well also stack new legendary lord and hero artifacts in there too. This one adds new legendary items for nearly every single lord and hero in the game. Unlike vanilla quest items, these just unlock once you reach a certain level, so give your lords and heroes a serious boost in power as they earn more XP. Now for some last campaign changes to rebalance diplomacy, give campaigns more direction, and of course, beautify the map. Diplomatic Logic and Rebalance Katsuko does what it says in the tin and rebalances basically every single aspect of diplomacy to make it make a little bit more sense. That means settlements are no longer a guaranteed way to get literally any deal you want. The AI will take a little more convincing to trust you, but once they do, they will be a lot more willing to work together. Pretty much anything related to diplomacy will just work better and feel less jarring, and make going through the rigmarole of making deals a lot more worthwhile. Victory Conditions Overhaul is one of my favourite mods of all time, and all it does is add new victory conditions for almost every single faction in the game. These have much more specific goals than vanilla to give your campaigns thematic direction, and even come with a bit of lore text. Plus, you usually have a number of options that all count as a win and give powerful bonuses, making playing after you've won a lot more tempting. Auto-resolve quest battles is a super simple mod that does exactly what it says. You can now auto-resolve quest battles. This makes those much easier battles easier to skip through, rather than having to do the same easy battle every time you want to replay a campaign. Lastly, some cosmetic changes that are totally optional but add some nice details to the campaign map. Dynamic World makes small but noticeable changes on the campaign map, with moodier lighting depending on the region owner, various fogs, and small world props. It's a very small change but helps make each region look like it's owned by who actually owns it. Fair warning, this has been known to tank frame rates, so if you're already struggling, maybe skip this one. Super Scenic Camera allows you to get super duper close to the map, giving you this angle that is in fact super scenic if you ask me. Moving over to battle now, and let's kick off with the expanded roster compilation. This is a classic mod that goes through a bunch of races in game and adds a bunch of new units to flesh out rosters while still adhering to the lore and balance of each race. Another mod that adds far more units than I could list here, but I did make a video a while back showing off every single unit, so if you want a full breakdown, there you go. All you need to know is we have more units to play with and more even feeling rosters across the board. Unit ability formation stances is something I've been pushing for in game for a while now. Formation abilities allow your units to take on certain formations for a variety of bonuses in the form of stat boosts and pure positional advantage. They can be niche, and in all likelihood you won't use them every single battle, but they're a nice option to have. If for no other reason, then they look really cool. Reloading animations is a simple cosmetic change that gives certain units in-game reloading animations rather than having them stood around waiting. Changes nothing that matters but looks cool, so why not? And lastly, Best Camera Mod, which really is the best camera mod. It's what lets me get those cool close-ups during battles but also zoom out really far without entering the dreaded tactical view. I literally have never turned this off, so it's a no-brainer. And lastly, a couple of quality of life mods to finish us off. High resolution UI improvements is my GOAT, and I will not play Warhammer 3 without it. It makes everything bigger and easier to read and use on higher resolution displays, and is an absolute must for anyone playing over 1080p. And lastly, disable startup splash screens. Saves a little bit of time and life on your escape key when loading up the game. And that is every single mod in my Ultimate Warhammer 3. We now have a thematically decorated campaign map with plenty of building options to get the most out of our settlements, powerful lords and heroes with more items than you could know what to do with, everything rebalanced to make a little bit more sense, victory conditions that are actually fun to work towards, more complete feeling rosters, and a better looking game from animations to menus. I really do think this is as good as you can get in Warhammer 3 without going beyond the limitations of a Vanilla Plus experience. Some areas may be a little bit unbalanced, but if you want to try this yourself, you can add as many penalties as you like, or even omit certain mods if you think they are too strong. Speaking of which, I will leave a link to this collection in the description below if you want to try out for yourself, but now I want to know, which mods do you think I missed? Is there anything else I could add that would elevate the game even further? Let me know in the comments below, like the video if you did, subscribe for more, and if you want more Warhammer 3 mod videos then check out this one, all about how exactly SFO changes the Dark Elves.